Shalom, everyone. This is to be considered part 3 of a series on Primeval Astrology. And in this video, we're principally going to discuss Primeval Astrology as it relates to financial crises, or specifically major stock market crashes. But before we begin that analysis, I thought it'd be fitting to just briefly discuss a few more astrological basic points, beginning with the astrological basis at creation, which Hatocha gives, which is in accord with Sefer Yechezkel. So, as we saw in the previous video, Sefer Yechezkel is one of the most Kabbalistic and astrological texts in the entire Holy Word, and we saw how Yechezkel's description of the chariot of Ha-Elohim is essentially the main circle of the heavens, which is the zodiac. And this is where we also found in another previous video many verses in the Holy Word that describe Ha-Elohim traversing and walking upon the zodiac, whose habitation is in the heavens, etc. Nevertheless, we went through the astrological basis given in Sefer Yechezkel in the previous video, noting how the astrological astrological basis that it gives are basically the four cardinal points on the zodiac. And we said how those cardinal points were Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. But this is also confirmed in Chatorah, where it is also given cryptically as well. So there in Chatorah, this astrological basis is encrypted, where we find that in the place in Chatorah where it talks about in the Book of Numbers, it gives a description of the positional layout of the 12 tribes in the form. It gives the positional layout of the 12 tribes in the wilderness in the form of a cross, where you have 3 tribes on each of the 4 parts of a cross. And then it enumerates which tribe is leading each of these 4 standards. And we find that the first standard, which is in the north, is headed by the tribe of Reuben. And Reuben's gemstone in the Hebrew is Odem, which is actually spelled the same way as Adam. It's just a matter of the vowel pointings. So because Reuben's gemstone is Odem, which is spelled the way Adam is, we then have a telistic or Kabbalistic equation between Reuben and Adam. In other words, Reuben is associated with Adam, and he's in the north, which is in accord with Yechezkel, who places Adam in the north, which is Aquarius. He's also associated with mandrakes in Hatocha, which look like man, or Adam, right? We read in the Tocha where Reuben goes and picks out some mandrakes for his mother, for the purpose of since mandrakes have aphrodisiacal qualities. So, anyways, moving on to the tribe of Ephraim, which is positioned left or west, we see in Hatocha in Sefer Devarim, chapter 33, verse 17, that he's compared to a bull or an ox. And again, this is in accord with Yechezkel, who places the ox west or in the left, right, which is the constellation of Taurus. We then see that on the east or the right, we have the tribe of Yehuda, and the tribe of Yehuda is compared with a lion in Bereshith, chapter 49, verse 9, again, in reference to the constellation Leo. And then we have the tribe of Daniel in the south, who is compared to a serpent in Bereshith chapter 49, verse 17. And this is in accord with Daniel, who says that this is the eagle or Scorpio. And again, this is one of a number of proofs that equate the serpent with the eagle. There are, of course, many other proofs in Hatocha and in the Holy Word, but again, it goes beyond the scope of this video to go into full detail on the entire Kabbalistic significance of the equation between the eagle and the serpent. Nevertheless, we can see here that we also have the astrological basis at creation given Yun which is in accord with Sefer Yecheskel. Now, moving on to talk about astrological conditions as they dictate events here on Earth, right? So, primeval astrology, true astrology, is a very exact and mathematical art and science. And it is important to realize that when we're looking at astrological conditions in order to predict the future, it should be noted that these astrological conditions can either, one, sometimes occur in advance of an event, two, sometimes occur on the day of the event, or three, sometimes a mixture of both. So this is why I say that most of primeval astrology has been lost to antiquity, because it's a very precise and exact art and science. And unfortunately, we have lost most of it to antiquity. And this is why we have so many pseudo-astrologers that have existed for the past 2,000 years who have no track record and really don't know what the hell they're talking about. If they did, they'd have a track record and they'd be very, very famous, right? There's only one or two astrologers in the past 2,000 years that I can name that have true track records and were true chief astrologers. Nevertheless, it's also important to know that on the sidereal basis, currently the vernal equinox is around 29 degrees Pisces, which I talked a little bit about in a previous video, right? We know that we're in the last generation, right? To any child or saint of Ha Elohim, it should be readily apparent in this time that we live in that we are in the last generation. And 29 degrees Pisces basically gives us about 30 years until we enter the age of Aquarius. And that's approximately more or less how far Yeshua's coming is out, more or less. So that's why I put an approximation. Of course, those who are fully initiated into the Holy Mysteries know exactly and precisely where we are, where the vernal equinox sits in the constellation of Pisces. And also understanding all of the Kabbalistic secrets in the book of Daniel, which not only gives the timeline for Yeshua's first coming, but for Mashiach's second coming as well. But again, this is only for those saints that are fully initiated into the Holy Mysteries. And these mysteries and these secrets are extremely, extremely esoteric, and they will not be revealed to anyone. So clearly they would not be able to be revealed in these series of videos anyhow. But it is important to note that a true highly initiated Kabbalist who is truly fully initiated into the Holy Mysteries knows exactly where the vernal equinox stands in the constellation Pisces, and knows the most telistic, understands and knows the most telistic levels of the book of Daniel in order to know when Yeshua is coming back, what exact date or year he is coming back. And again, I'm sure that if there are any stupid or ignorant Christians watching this video, that they may disagree with me. They might cite certain verses from the New Testament. But again, I don't have the time to confute and refute stupid and ignorant Christians at this moment. Nevertheless, to ascertain the sidereal basis, all you need to do is shift the tropical basis by 2 constellations, because since we can safely assume or approximate that the vernal equinox is right around 0 degrees Aquarius, all we need to do then is shift the tropical basis by 2 constellations. And so here I also noted a diagram to show the 2 main circles in the heavens, as Yecheskel reveals, right? The outer circle represents the zodiac, and the inner circle represents the revolution of the planets, right? Which would be 7 circles, right? So we have a total of 8 circles, but there are 2 circles that are hidden that I have not shown here, because as I said in the previous video, the heavens contain 10 circles or 10 revolutions. Nevertheless, you also should note here that the inner sphere revolves contrary to the outer sphere. Now we proceed to talk about primeval mundane astrology as it relates to massive stock market crashes. Lately, there has been a lot of memes on the internet about, and in the public domain, that seem to equate this year, 2017, with 1987 and 1929, with respect to financial matters, specifically the stock market. And one such meme here I've posted is a chart of the S&P 500 here in 2017 compared against the S&P in 1987, which seems to indicate that we're very close to a major stock market crash, because financial gurus and pundits that study cycles duly note many of the preeminent cycles that occurred through financial history, and that one such cycle is that they have duly noted that the vast majority of stock market crashes occur right around the month of September and October, as we'll see here shortly. So now we're going to proceed with in-depth astrological analysis of these 3 years and see, can we find a connection, right? We begin with the Black Tuesday, which was October 29, 1929, which on the Hebrew calendar happened to occur on the 7th month, which in ancient Hebrew is called Ethanim, in Primeval Hebrew, the 7th month of the Hebrew calendar was called Ethanim, but in ancient Hebrew, it was given the Babylonian name Tishrei. Nevertheless, Black Tuesday occurred in the month of October, which happened to be Ethanim 26/27. Now here I give you some snapshots of the astrological conditions as can be seen from an ephemeris, which are based on a tropical system. So what I have done below is translated them to the sidereal basis, because that's the correct basis. And on a sidereal basis, we should duly note that the moon on October 29th is in quartile aspect with Saturn in the constellation of Libra, right around 26 degrees. And the moon is also approaching the constellation Leo. And so these are the two main astrological conditions that are occurring on this date. Now, it's extremely significant to note that Saturn, which is a malefic planet, is in a malefic constellation, which is Libra, right? The constellation Libra signifies judgment, and Saturn is a malefic planet. So we have three amplifications of evil. One, that the moon is in quartile aspect with Saturn, which is an evil aspect. Two, Saturn is a malefic planet, which I guess is just part of this evil aspect. But three, that this quartile aspect is occurring in the constellation Libra, which is a malefic constellation. So we have, at the very least, two evil aspects occurring here. The third major evil aspect is that the exaltation of Saturn occurs in the constellation Libra right around 21 degrees. So this further amplifies the evil or malefic attributes or power of Saturn, because it's exalted in this constellation. So all in all, we have three very, very major evil aspects occurring on this day, which further amplify and increase the manifestation of evil on this day, which manifested through a very major, powerful stock market crash, right? Duly note, too, that this occurred on the 7th month on the Hebrew calendar, right? It's literally about 2 weeks. It's literally about a week after the end of Sukkot. Now, we proceed to Black Monday, which happened on October 19th, 1987. And this, too, very, very interestingly enough, just happened to occur on Ethanim 26/27. And would you look at that? On this day, the moon was also in quartile aspect with Saturn in the constellation Libra right around 17 degrees, very near the exaltation of Saturn. And guess what? The moon also is approaching the constellation Leo. So we can see here that the astrological conditions that are prevalent on this day are, for the most part, exactly the same as those that occurred in 1929 on Black Tuesday. This is very, very, very interesting that on these 2 days, when the most powerful, greatest stock market crashes in history occurred, that these astrological conditions are taking place, which are about the same for both of these days in 1929 and 87. But it gets even more interesting. Now we analyze the astrological conditions here in 2017. Well, October 16, 2017, which is about a week away, happens to be 8th Anim 2627 on the Hebrew calendar for this year. So let us see, what are the astrological conditions going to be for this day? Well, on this day, the moon will be in quartile aspect with Saturn in the constellation Libra around 23 degrees, and the moon will be approaching the constellation Leo. Again, very close to the exaltation of Saturn. So based on this astrological analysis, we can say with a high degree of certainty that there is an over 90% probability that there's going to be a very major, very powerful stock market crash occurring literally in about 1 week. Now, you may be asking, well, how often do these astrological events occur? Well, these events are very rare. You have to understand that it takes Saturn about 26 years to make one full revolution around the zodiac, right? So it takes every 26 years. It takes every 26 years for Saturn to be in the constellation Libra, and then you have to look at the probabilities of when this happens. When is the moon going to be approaching the constellation Leo on this day at the noon 2627, right? So if you were to calculate the mathematical probabilities of all of these astrological conditions taking place, the probability is going to be very low, which is why I say that there is an over 90% probability at the very least that we should be expecting a very major stock market crash on the same proportion or on the same level as occurred in 1929 and 1987, which also further reinforces why is it that there seems to be all of these memes on the internet and in the public domain within the last year equating 2017 with 1987 and 1929. This didn't just happen out of the blue. There are astral forces at work here. There are spiritual forces at work here. Nevertheless, there's a reason why I'm posting this video 1 week before this taking place. It's not like I just discovered this yesterday. But anyways, this is to prove and seal that indeed I'm the chief magician of Mystery Babylon. Amen.